This is TTT Live. I am GK Roster. The THA Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development is hosting a press conference to update on its response to COVID-19. We're bringing you live coverage on TTT and Talk City 91.1 FM, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TTT Live Online.
As you may be viewing us at the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development's media briefing. My name is Rian George, the Senior Corporate Communications Officer at the Division, and it is indeed a pleasure to moderate this afternoon's proceedings. It is once again that time when we come and update you. It's our commitment to 19 in Tobago, and we do thank you for tuning in. On our panel this afternoon, we do have with us, to my left, the Deputy Chief Secretary of the THA and the Secretary of Finance and the Economy, Assemblyman Joel Jack, and he will give us an update on the committee that he is on and the different updates coming out of that committee. On the left of him, we do have our Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development, Councillor Tracy Davidson Celestine, and she will give us updates on the COVID-19 committee on the health perspective and on the social services side. And on her left, we have Councillor Nadine Stewart-Phillips, the Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, and she will obviously give us an update from on the tourism perspective. And on her left, we do have with us the School Supervisor 3, Mrs. Sherry-Ann Rollocks-Hackett, and she will give us an update with education. So at this time, the cameras will go to her, Mrs. Sherry-Ann Rollocks-Hackett, who will give us an update with education. Mrs. Rollocks-Hackett.
Mr. George. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. At the Division of Education, Innovation and Energy, we continue to roll out our continuing education plan in a very coherent and structured manner. I will focus this afternoon on bringing you up to date on what we have been working on as it pertains to three major aspects of that plan. One, our continuing education program, the subsidizing of meals for the neediest students on the school feeding program, our continued student support to our at-risk students. Now, with specific reference to our determination to continue the education of our students during this time, we have approached the challenge on two main levels, at the level of the school and at the level of the division. I will first begin by updating you at the level of the schools. And I want to first begin by reiterating the fact that our principals and teachers at the ECCE, primary and secondary sectors are currently continuing to implement their e-learning action plans. These plans, in many instances, include timetables which indicate the date, time, subject, and topics to be covered online over a typical week. This has resulted in almost all schools on the island currently engaging in some degree of online teaching and learning. Whether they are using Zoom, Google Classrooms, Edmundo, or even WhatsApp, teaching and learning continues for many of our students in Tobago during this stay-at-home period. I would like to take this opportunity to affirm the principals and teachers at our schools who, in the face of non-idyllic circumstances, have taken up this challenge to continue to interact with our students. It is quite admirable. Teachers and principals, we say thank you. Now, while the teachers and at the schools are working to engage students, I have received some complaints from principals about students who are in possession of devices and internet access not turning up online as is required. So parents, once your child is privileged enough to be in possession of the necessary devices and internet access required for online learning, ensure that they actually get online and do what is expected. Now, at the level of the division, only last Friday, we relaunched our website right here at the library. And we are still populating that website. But as we continue to cater for the continuing educational needs of our students, we are pleased to announce the launch of our pre-taped video lessons and online tutorial sessions today. Initially, the videos were scheduled to be aired on Monday, the 24th of April, but due to unforeseen circumstances, we were forced to delay the launch. But let me be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. The teachers on the videos have not received any formal training in the production of lessons delivered before a camera. As a result, we spent a great deal of time and effort learning and understanding the best practices for teaching on camera and in teaching online in general. And you know what? The learning continues. This afternoon, however, it is my profound pleasure to indicate that the Division of Education, Innovation, and Energy's e-learning program will be launched on Monday, the 4th of April, 2020. The videos will be aired twice weekly on a Monday and on a Wednesday for between 30 to 45 minutes. The length of the lessons would mimic that of the normal classroom. Times of airing will be at 11 a.m. and again at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So at 11 a.m. on Monday coming, our CSEC students can look forward to a mathematics reinforcement lesson on integers. Your teacher for that session will be Mr. Joseph Frederick, math teacher at Goodwood Secondary School. In the afternoon, at 2 p.m. to be specific, we will continue with CSEC Visual Arts with visual arts teacher, Mr. Tomley Roberts of Speyside High School. On Wednesday, the 6th of May, 2020, we will move on to CAPE. At the AM session, we would have Mrs. Kimmery Richardson-Thomas delivering a CAPE Communication Studies lesson, and in the afternoon, Mrs. Jamila Amin Bacchus delivering a CAPE Biology Unit 1 lesson. Now, the full schedule of classes will be posted on the division's website and will also be advertised on Tobago Channel 5. Ladies and gentlemen, the taping of these lessons was an eye-opener to all involved in the exercise. But you know what? Our teachers rose to the levels that many did not believe that they could have risen to. At the end of the day, it revealed above all that indeed we do have some very committed and talented master teachers in our midst here in Tobago. It was uncharted waters, but those teachers who volunteered, they delved right in, driven by a determination to ensure that the needs of our Tobago students are addressed. Again, I want to sincerely thank all the teachers who volunteered and subsequently participated in the videotaping of the lessons, and those who also volunteered for the tutorials. Permit me also to thank members of the curriculum unit at the division, who were tasked with the responsibility of vetting each lesson to ensure accuracy and pedagogical soundness. In circumstances where we did not have the necessary curriculum officer in Tobago, Mrs. Sinrose, who heads that unit, took it upon herself to send the teachers' work to the requisite colleagues in Trinidad to get the job done. I also want to thank Title Officer, Ms. Jan Richards. She has been a pillar of support throughout the making of these videos. And we also say thanks to Ms. Richards. I will also give you a brief update on our Moodle platform. Now, this platform we will use to administer the online learning elements of our e-learning plan. Again, the target audience will be our students who are preparing for high-stakes examinations at this point. I am pleased to say that the IT technicians at Tittle, who have been working with us, have been busy inserting all the functionalities on the platform. Our aim is to have that platform operationalized by next week. Note that it would be on this platform that the tutorials that will accompany the pre-recorded video lessons would be conducted, and all other online teaching will take place. The training of teachers in the use of this platform is also scheduled to begin next week, Wednesday, the 5th of April, 2020, online. In the first instance, it will target the teachers currently involved in the pre-recording of the videos and those who are participating as tutors. As far as the food cards are concerned, the School Supervision and Management Unit, together with the Student Support Unit, compiled a list of the neediest cases of students who require assistance in this way. The list was then forwarded, and at this point in time, the division is pleased to announce that we are in the possession of approximately 950 food cards, and those cards will be delivered as soon as possible, I suspect by next week. So we are saying to parents, don't begin to call the division. We have your numbers and we have the names, and we will so call you and notify you. Meeting of the psychosocial needs of our students, that also continues with members of our guidance unit, liaising with parents and students. They have embedded themselves also in the WhatsApp PTAs at the various schools, and also in WhatsApp form class groupings to treat with the various issues that will beset our students at this particular time. In closing, let me take this opportunity to congratulate all the teachers in Tobago who have bravely stepped out of their comfort zones to engage our students in online learning. We at the division are aware of the issues you are facing and how many of you are soldiering on in spite of those issues. I say to all of you, continue the good work. Ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you with a 2-minute video that will give you a taste of our online lessons. Thank you.
My name is Kimmery Richardson Thomas.
My name is Timothy Atwell.
I am Miss Jamila Amin Bacchus.
I am Lynetta Cowie-Clark. I am Mrs. Janelle Dillon Shepherd.
I'm Mr. Tom Lee Roberts from the Division
of Education,
Innovation and Energy's
e-learning program.
Now, scumbling is a painting technique in which a layer of broken, speckled, or scratchy color is added over another color. So this is scumbling, and it is done utilizing a very high degree of animated strokes, or crazy strokes, if you want to call it that.
Take this for that, that for this. Bills and coins are smarter, but when you pay for that, remember this. It all started out with barter.
So let's look at this activity. Barterer number 1 and barterer number 4 seems to have something in common. So we could foresee barterer number 1 and 4 doing an exchange, even though barterer number 4 said he would only trade 3 carrots.
Here, you also have a radius. But sir, it labeled diameter. Hey, you're observant. So, but watch it. The diameter, we said, goes from circumference to circumference and passes through the center. So we should see that the diameter is actually made from 2 radii. So from here, from the center to the circumference, what's that line called? It's a radius. So here we have a radius.
Can you roll your tongue?
And by roll, I mean fold like this. Be sure to ask other members of your family at the end of this program if they too can roll their tongue, and you would be able to explain to them why they can or cannot roll their tongue. So in this case, 100% of the offspring will be rollers. So it means that your genotype will have to be capital D, common D. Even if you marry a non-roller, every one of your offspring will have or will be a roller.
Then seizing on the swinging tail that fell within his scope, I see, quoth he, the elephant is very like a rope. And so these men of Hindustan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion, exceeding stiff and strong. Though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong.
We saw that each man had a perspective of the elephant based on their singular point of view. Comprehension becomes flawed if we're only going to focus on the aspect that's directly in front of us. But in order to truly understand any concept, it requires a holistic point of view.
I know this is a different method of teaching. It's a different method of learning. I am, as you can see, I am also new to this. And I am making my mistakes as I go along, but I'm learning. And so too you will learn, right? We have to get accustomed to this new method of teaching and learning, because as it is, we have no choice.
Thank you very much to Mrs. Rollox Hackett and team, and to everyone who would have viewed that video. It really did take us back to school, and it did put a smile on my face knowing that the Division of Education, Innovation and Energy are doing all that they can do to ensure that our children are secure during this difficult time of COVID-19. So once again, Mrs. Rollox Hackett, thank you for your presentation, and thanks to you and your team. As we continue with our presentations at this media briefing, at this time, the Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, Counselor Nadine Stewart-Phillips, will address you. Mrs. Nadine Stewart-Phillips.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. George. Members of the media, our viewing and listening audience, a very pleasant good afternoon. I am taking this opportunity to provide you all with an update re the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, and our response to the COVID-19 situation. As we are all aware, COVID-19 is the new norm that has obtained globally. We have experienced a virus covering a number of countries in a very short space of time. And tourism, as we know it, is a very vulnerable industry to pandemics or any event that causes global disruption. In Tobago, the tourism hospitality sector was an early casualty of this pandemic and was directly impacted as early as February by restriction on international travel, the closure of our borders, followed by a reduction on inter-island travel and other stay-at-home measures. But every challenge presents an opportunity, and the Honorable Prime Minister and the government of Trinidad and Tobago, cognizant of the unfortunate and unavoidable developments, is making a grant facility of 50 million TT dollars available to the Tobago tourism accommodation sector. I am happy to inform this afternoon that Cabinet has approved the policy and program for this Relief Grant 2020. The administration, organization, and guidance of this grant will be done by the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation through the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited. We will also be in conversation with the Ministry of Tourism in Trinidad, and by next week we will provide details on the access and also outlining the specific criteria. As part of our recovery strategy on the island of Tobago, there is a two-phased intervention which will form part of our preparation for post-COVID. A short-term immediate intervention aimed at sustaining, upgrading, and improving our tourism accommodation businesses. And this, of course, is in line with our strategic development on the island as a successful, sustainable, and competitive destination. And so phase one, of course, seeks to focus on property refurbishments and upgrades and addresses the elements of the issues of competitiveness post-COVID. We also have a longer-term intervention phase, which is aimed primarily at the destination's readiness, and this focuses on increasing the quality of the services offered on the island of Tobago. The plan is geared towards improving product quality, enhancing business development, and of course, ensuring that there is business continuity post-COVID-19. One of the important aspects in the recovery strategy is to ensure that all our tourism businesses remain competitive. And when we speak about increasing business competitiveness, it may include ensuring that our sectors are certified, but more specifically, we want to place focus on digitization and training. And this aspect seeks to encourage all our providers and businesses to make their products available to a wider global audience by going online. And this crisis has forced us to embrace the norms of the digitized economy, and it may be the new way of operating and communicating. And it is no secret that technology will play a far and new reaching role in the new tourism that will emerge. And so we want to ensure that all our sectors are prepared to utilize this technology from anywhere. Developing awareness and encouraging a digital presence has been a key feature and factor of our planning as we encourage all our tourism entities to get online as part of our strategy moving forward. And this process will be managed by the Tobago Tourism Agency to ensure that there is alignment with the marketing activities. Discussions are already on the way for a training and development component. Training and development is very integral in making the tourism product ready for international competitiveness, and it is an integral part of our plan post-COVID-19. We will implement staff training across a wide spectrum of the visitor experience aimed at service enhancement. And we want this to focus on addressing the service needs of Tobago through awareness building, inculcating knowledge to managers and leaders at hospitality establishments on the importance of delivering service quality. In the weeks following the closure of the borders, both locally and internationally, the Tobago Tourism Agency has been actively engaged with our international trade, operating remotely, of course, in compliance with the stay-at-home measures. And I just wish to provide an update from the United Kingdom market. British Airways, we are informed that British Airways has laid off just about 36,000 of their staff. And while we maintain a contractual agreement with the airline, it's a development that we have to keep monitoring very closely as the impacts of COVID is continuously unfolding. We have a somewhat similar experience with Virgin Atlantic. That's the other airline that operates out of the United Kingdom. That airline has sought financial assistance from the government of the United Kingdom to bolster its operations in wake of the impacts of the pandemic. The outcome of that request, as we have been informed, is pending. In January and February, negotiations were ongoing for the purchase of Condor by a Polish airline group. That process has stopped, and Condor has received some bridging financial assistance from the German government, which will see its continued operations in the post-COVID-19 era. The airline has notified us that they will make announcements in May regarding the resumption of their service. So as I indicated, we are in line with our international partners. In the area of marketing, our efforts thus far have been centered around charting a course of action to help mitigate the impact on travel to Tobago from Trinidad, the Caribbean region, and our source markets, including Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, Scandinavia. So we have maintained contacts with our key travel partners in the short to medium term. We are keeping the customer and industry conversations going and innovate through our online channels and existing relationships with the Dreaming of Tobago mini campaign. The emphasis on this campaign is utilizing user-generated content to showcase previous visitor experiences while on the island. In the emerging recovery phase, we will target those who are most likely to travel, our domestic, our regional, and diaspora audiences, as well as our own Tobagonians, through staycation campaigns. Our repeat visitors, our resilient visitors via our niches, weddings, honeymoons, birdings, water sports, etc. And in the full recovery phase, we will launch a multi-channel global campaign to ensure that we remain relevant for audiences. Tobago has never been a mass tourism destination. Our brand message and product offerings are well positioned to take advantage of the consumers who may not be so inclined to travel to destinations with a high population or destinations that are extremely popular. And so social distancing and safety will be a core asset in selling the destination. Therefore, we see the road to recovery as full of opportunity, and we are preparing all our materials to ensure that we engage effectively. Truthfully, the picture of COVID-19 is still unfolding, and in these early days, our plans will require us to be fluid as we absorb and adapt to the market realities and, of course, the global economies. We also need to bear in mind that the timeline for recovery of the tourism sector depends on how quickly we as a country pull out of this crisis, but more so how quickly our source markets and the globe pulls out of this crisis. We are using this opportunity to relook every area and every strategy that we have built in the past so that our roadmap for growth will be re-examined. We have to address the issue, as I mentioned earlier, of service quality. We have to, of course, strengthen our product offering, and so too our marketing reach and our share of voice and sight in the tourism marketing arena. But more importantly, we have to also survive this downtime and to ensure that we come out ready on the other end. We have been working internally to come up with a fair and effective package of support to our tourism businesses. And I'm just taking this opportunity to mention that we have received proposals from some of our tourism associations. I want to make specific mention of the Tobago Bridal Association and thank them for taking the time off to meet as a team and send recommendations to us. I want to assure you that we are considering your recommendations and your proposals, and we will ensure that all our niches and our tourism businesses within the sector are prepared and equipped for the reopening. So, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, as I wrap up, the immediate future is not clear as to how quickly we bounce back, what happens in the next 6 months to a year. However, the tourism industry, as we know it, is resilient. Tobagonians, as we know, are resilient people, and we are therefore preparing for the new opportunities that will emerge post-COVID-19. I thank you.
Thank you very much to Councillor Nadine Stewart-Phillips for your presentation. At this time, we will move on to the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Finance and the Economy, Assemblyman Joel Jack. He will give his presentation now.
Thank you so much, Sir George. Good afternoon to my Assembly colleagues, to the members of the media, and to persons listening to us online via the World Wide Web and as well on Facebook Live. You may recall during my first press, I'm saying my first press conference, but the first press conference of the Council for Health, I intimated and gave a report and an update coming out of the committee appointed by the Cabinet. And I also alluded to the fact that as a member of the committee appointed by the cabinet as it relates specifically to finance and to devising other measures to confront the COVID-19 pandemic immediately, we came up with a suite of intervention measures nationally and also measures that would treat with issues specific to Tobago. Coming out of that committee, certain announcements were made, and I'll be pleased to report on a number of them shortly. Additionally, as Secretary of Finance and the Economy, I, as part of my responsibility in terms of managing the island's economy and to treat with the issues on the island related to COVID, I prepared 2 Executive Council notes to treat with the issues specific to Tobago. Those notes were tabled, and they involved a number of measures treating with the agricultural sector. And I know the Secretary was here last week alluding to some of those measures, totaling approximately 7.6 million TT dollars. And additionally, my colleague, Secretary Martin Melville Jack, outlined in detail the measures as it relates to the intervention for the SME sector. On last Wednesday, I tabled a note before the Executive Council to appoint a post-COVID-19 task force charged with preparing the roadmap to recovery. And that working group will be announced next week once the note is approved by the Executive Council. We can all appreciate, and I guess we will all agree that and from the recent estimates from the IMF and all the regional multilateral agencies, suggests that the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic is anticipated to be quite severe given the protracted period of the lockdown and the economic impact of the health measures implemented to flatten the epidemiological curve. Additionally, the resultant disruption to economic activity across many sectors will likely to have a grave impact on the Tobago economy for a long time to come. The IMF in its recent report estimated that the global economy will decline by approximately 3% in 2020, and these are still early estimates, with a return to growth in 2021 by approximately 5.8%. The Minister of Finance also alluded to the fact that the deficit would increase by an additional $10 billion and compounded primarily by declining oil prices on the international market. And given the recent phenomena that we witnessed where the West Texas Intermediate price fell below US $1 per barrel and into minus, and we are living in definitely uncertain times. When we did our projections coming out of our GDP exercise last year, we projected that prior to the COVID-19, the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic, and using our estimates as reported last year, the Tobago economy was projected to grow by approximately 1.1% in 2019 and continued on a positive growth path in 2020. We are still examining the impact of the fallout across various sectors. In the tourism sector, it was over 80 million TT dollars, and we are looking at the economic impact across all sectors, and it's and our initial estimates suggest that it will be very sizable. The consensus, therefore, both locally and internationally, and the feedback that we have been getting from some of the multilateral partners suggests that the strategy to confront the impact of this pandemic is one that is targeted, immediate, and comprehensive. I must commend the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the team at the national level for the management, the overall management of the COVID-19 pandemic. And more recently, on the 16th of April, where the Prime Minister announced the establishment of a working team to outline the roadmap for recovery, roadmap to recovery for Trinidad and Tobago. Two members of the team, of that team of 21 comprised persons from Tobago, Dr. Selvon Hazel, Chief Economist in Economic Management Research Unit in the Division of Finance and the Economy, and as well businessman Mr. Alan Warner. I'm also pleased to let persons know that we have seen a number of countries initiating a similar task force, and this is what is required at this time as we treat with the socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 and implementing the necessary mitigating measures. Let me say that in the Tobago context, the multi-sectoral working group will develop a comprehensive strategy and nuanced response to the needs of the citizens and all sectors in Tobago. COVID-19 and the interlinked global economic recession is one of the most far-reaching crises in history, and this has been underscored by the uncertainty of its duration and its containment and the varied responses by countries. Let me say that this task force and what will be required is a paradigm shift in the value proposition of our economies, in our development planning, implementation, and performance. And we will see a fundamental shift in the way we live, in the way we learn, in the way we relate with each other. It is in this island's and by extension, this nation's best interest to ensure that we develop an evidence-based and data-driven localized framework to guide a measure reopening, socioeconomic recovery, and in some cases, what I would call an economic reset. As we build and as we look forward to that period of recovery and when there'll be a reopening of business activity, let me ask and let me warn persons that for us to eschew a return to quote unquote, a return to normal. What I would ask rather though is a rethinking not only of the outcomes to be delivered, but a conscious transformation of the underlying economy and society to be shaped by the outcomes and by the decisions that we come up with coming out from this working group. Some of the areas to be covered will be fiscal stabilization and stringent policy investment prioritization, business continuity and furthering the improvement in the ease of doing business in Tobago, sustainable tourism recovery, food security, strategic digital infrastructure investment, social inclusion, and environmental and infrastructural resilience. Some of the TORs of the working group will include the establishment of a baseline status report of the Tobago economy, in particular the key productive sectors, including tourism, agriculture, agro-processing, retail and distribution, light manufacturing, and construction. And the committee will be charged with outlining recommendations for recovery, or as I like to term it, reset. The committee will also be tasked with a review of the current socio-economic interventions that are required to effectively meet the targeted recipients, and the committee will also prescribe the amendments to the current programs. Additionally, the committee will be tasked with a review of the institutional framework of the Assembly with a view towards improving public sector efficiency and as well reducing the implementation deficit. The committee will also be tasked with identifying public-private sector and multilateral or other initiatives that should be adopted or pursued to complement existing economic activity to enhance sustainable diversification strategies. As I indicated, the committee will be announced, the names of the persons in the committee will be announced later on, but I will be part of that committee as well as the representative on the National Committee. Sometime earlier when I addressed members of the media, I outlined and I indicated the need for the Assembly to recalibrate our fiscal priorities given the current realities, the current economic realities before us. I'm pleased to announce as well that an Executive Council note was tabled on Wednesday. To be reviewed and approved next week, Wednesday. In the division, as I indicated prior, we ran several scenarios looking at the potential impact on the Tobago economy, looking at the likely impact to the Tobago House of Assembly on our resources and to come up with a strategy that will be required to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and also what will be necessary for us to provide the necessary support to various sectors, including tourism and all SMEs across the island. Next Wednesday, the executive will continue its deliberations, and we will inform the members of the media of some of the initiatives, policies, and programs coming out from that decision as we seek to recalibrate our priorities and to manage our resources in light of our current fiscal issues. In that regard as well, I believe most of us would have been aware of the announcement by the Minister of Finance in the Parliament as he updated persons on the state of the national economy and declining revenues from oil and gas, and as well declining revenues from taxes. The minister in his statement also outlined the measures implemented to treat with the economic impact and the financial resources that are available to the government. The minister also highlighted that the world economic outlook in its forecast suggested an oil price of $35 in 2020 and US $37.87 in 2021. However, he was revising his estimates downwards to approximately $32 per barrel, and that has to be taken into consideration, whereas the break-even price of producing that oil is US $28 a barrel. He also indicated that estimates for the price of natural gas by the suggests a price of US $2.11 per MMBTU in 2020, whereas the budgeted price for oil was $60, and the budgeted price for natural gas was US $3 per MMBTU. And given the structure of our economy and given the fact that oil or revenues from oil comprise our major revenue base, and that our oil and gas tax revenues, coupled with the expenditure to provide social support for citizens across Trinidad and Tobago, that the government was reviewing and recalibrating its budget, and he indicated that although they're in the process of undertaking this exercise, that he anticipates that they will hit their $53 billion expenditure target in fiscal 2020. Let me at this time as I said before, commend the minister and his team for their overall management of the economy and of the mechanisms and the strategies that they have implemented thus far. As it relates to the Tobago context, and as the minister would have indicated, that in an attempt to improve the cash flow to the business sector and to maintain employment, the minister has started paying out VAT refunds and estimated at approximately $700 million. And let me say, I know in my previous meetings with the business community and members of the Hotel Association, this was one issue that they were excited about, and this is one of their recommendations, that the government accelerate the payment as it relates to VAT refunds and taxes. So I know this will augur well for the members of the business community in Tobago. Additionally, the minister outlined that the Ministry of Finance approved that national liquidity program in conjunction with the credit union sector to provide approximately $100 million in soft loans to their members, both persons, employees who have been impacted by the pandemic, and as well as small business persons. This will allow the credit unions to offer loans up to $5,000 per month for 3 months, or $15,000 in total to their members. The interest rate for this program will be halved, will be cut in half. If the credit unions normally charge 1%, it will be reduced by 50%, and if they usually charge 2% on the reducing balance, that will be reduced by 50%. And these interest rates and other repayment terms will be favorable to members of the credit union. And let me state that during my consultations with various sectors, with members of the credit unions, they were also excited to participate in this program and gave their overwhelming support, and also informed how the structure of this program should be. So again, I want to announce that the program was formally launched, and I've been meeting with members of the credit union sector as we seek to roll out this program to the wider Tobago public. Specifically as it relates to Tobago, again, in the recent announcements by the minister, I'm pleased to announce that today we got the final tranche of the $50 million allocated to Tobago to treat with the COVID pandemic. The minister and his team gave a commitment to provide the funding in April. We received the first tranche last week, as the Minister of Health would have indicated. And just while sitting here, I got the notice following my conversation with the Ministry of Finance yesterday regarding the outstanding release. And I'm pleased to announce today that we have received the full $50 million allocation from the Minister of Finance to fund the COVID-19 pandemic, to fund that, the rollout of that program in Tobago. I know the Minister, the Secretary of Health will be happy, with that announcement. And we want to thank the Minister of Finance and his team for their continued support and hard work. The $5 million towards the Enterprise Development Program, that program was launched last week by the Secretary, as I indicated to earlier. And my colleague would have also intimated with respect to the $50 million program for the tourism sector. I would just like to provide an update as it relates to the $300 million bond as it relates to the Tobago House of Assembly, as I would have spoken about earlier, following a conference call on Monday with the bank and the team at the Division of Finance. We will be heading to market very soon, within the next 6 weeks or so, to ensure that we have additional resources to fund the Assembly's priority projects and our development program. And we are well on our way to ensuring the execution of the bond. Just before I close, I just want to treat with certain issues related to the distribution of food cards across Tobago, and just to inform persons that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we would have received an influx of persons coming to the emergency assistance card unit. And from March to present, the unit would have distributed approximately over 2,700 food cards. This figure includes the cards supplied to the Division of Education to assist needy students who would have normally received the school feeding program. This number also includes walk-ins to the division, and I want to ensure the rest of Tobago that notwithstanding the challenges, we remain committed to serving all Tobagonians and citizens resident in Tobago. Additionally, these forms are available through the health centers, at the hospital, in public spaces, through your electoral district offices, and assemblymen would have been assisting members in their community to complete the forms and submit them to the Division of Finance. So I want to urge persons, we have been hearing some reports of delays and bottlenecks. We are working with persons to ensure a speedy process. As I announced earlier, we anticipated a 1-week processing time for the delivery of the forms, and I envision that by next week, if there are any backlogs, if there are any backlogs, these backlogs will be taken care of next week. As it relates to our senior citizens, there was a challenge with residents at Roxborough as it relates to the opening of the First Citizens Bank branch in Roxborough. And I want to thank First Citizens Bank for their support and responding to our request for the opening of the additional branches across Tobago, especially the branch in Roxborough. I want to take the opportunity to advise members of the public and to advise those who have not been aware of the operating hours of First Citizens on the island for this month 10. The Canaan branch will be serving pensioners and differently abled persons on May 1st, 4th, and 5th between the hours of 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and on Fridays, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. With the Roxborough and Scarborough branches remaining open during the same period until May 6th. We're hoping that this will be extended to May 8th, and I will stay in contact with the persons at First Citizens to ensure that the branches remain open to serve the Tobago public, but especially their seniors and our differently abled persons. Additionally, when I was advised of the closure in Roxborough and while we were having discussions with First Citizens, we implemented at the BIR Roxborough office in the division, we implemented a system whereby they could have assisted pensioners to encash their pension checks at the Roxborough district office. Although the Roxborough branch will be open, this facility would be in place. So again, I want to urge our dear seniors that in addition to First Citizens Bank, you can encash your pension checks at the Roxborough district office. And we have put all the mechanisms and all the measures in place to supplement or to complement the FCB opening in Roxborough. And also we have put in the necessary measures in place to observe social distancing. So persons can access this facility during the hours of 8 a.m. to 12 noon, Monday to Friday, at the Roxborough District Office. Let me thank you, members of the media, and to our viewing audience on social media for the opportunity to update you on the activities in the Division of Finance and Economy.
All right, thank you very much to Assemblyman Joel Jack. Quite a comprehensive account of all the different things that have been taking place at the Division of Finance and the Economy. At this time, our final panelist will address you, and none other than Councillor Tracy Davidson Celestin, the Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development. Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. George, Communication Specialist, and let me say a pleasant afternoon to you, the members of the media, as well as to our listening public out there in Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago. I, too, would like to add to the discussion that we are still in the process of finalizing our approach to treating with COVID in the event that when the borders will reopen, and of course preparing for a second wave here on the island. I am pleased to say that at this point we have no new cases, and that has been the situation for quite some time now. And also to date, we have no suspected cases, whether it be at the hospital or in any of our quarantine and dedicated facilities here. Additionally, we have submitted about 131 tests to CARFA to date. The number of persons testing positive still remain at 5, and that has been for quite some time now. What I would want to communicate to you in addition, members of the public, is that we have begun the process of community testing, or public health officials out there in the communities testing anyone and everyone who exhibits any traditional signs and symptoms of COVID, as well as persons displaying any unusual presentations, because over the last few weeks we have seen instances where there is evidence to suggest that even persons with strokes are likely to be tested for COVID. And so here in Tobago, and I'm sure it's the same in Trinidad as well, we want to ensure that in our communities there is no one with COVID, and we have expanded the reach to ensure that we have more tests being done, and to be comfortable that we have no COVID in our communities out there in Tobago. And like I have said in all my press conferences, I encourage members of the communities, I encourage persons to come forward for testing. That is, if you have displayed any signs and symptoms related to COVID, or even any unusual signs and symptoms, as I would have indicated earlier. Our hotlines have been up and running. They are very well established, and when you call, we will immediately schedule an appointment for testing at the very earliest convenience. I also wish to add to the discussion that I have met again with part of the leadership of the healthcare in Tobago to determine the approach to treating with 2 of our upcoming facilities, and of course one of our existing health facility here on this island. I wish to indicate to you, the members of the public, that although we have a revised completion date of July 2020 for the Moriah Health Center, and of course that change of date is as a result of the challenges arising from COVID, the team has met and they have determined the staffing needs at the Moriah facility. The proposal put forward is that the Moriah facility will operate as an enhanced facility, which means that it will have its own clinic schedulings as well as some expanded services. You must be aware that the data indicates that in the north side catchment area, there are over 7,500 persons in that particular area, and the Moriah Health Center would provide also walking services for that particular catchment area. And so persons residing in Lansome, Palotivere, Castara, Runnymede, Moriah can access walk-in services at the Moriah Health Facility going forward. In addition, there will be the health services, the health center services, and the plan is to have extended hours up until 8 p.m. at night. Some of the services to be offered at the Moriah Health Center would be walk-in, as I would have indicated earlier, and that is urgent care, antenatal, we have child welfare clinics, district and community nursing, cancer screening, pharmacy services, family planning, plus 12 other services, including dental services, and of course, there will be an isolation room established. And so the point I am making is that the planning is well on the way to treating with the opening of the Moriah Health Center, which is projected to be completed by July 2020. The completion of the Moriah Health Center will bring the total number of health centers in Tobago to 18. And of course, it fits into a vision of decentralizing health services on this island. We also spoke to the approach to treating with the hospital facility located in Roxborough and the health center in Charlottesville. The staffing requirements and services to be offered at the Roxborough Mini Hospital will be spearheaded by the Medical Chief of Staff, that is Dr. Victor Wheeler. He will meet with his team to come up with the staffing requirements and, of course, the type and level of services to be offered at that facility. And when that has been determined, we will then have discussion with representatives of the users of the facility in Tobago East with a view to ensuring that they understand the approach and that they are part of the process in determining and adding to the discussion on the services to be offered. In the case of Charlottesville, I wish to add that a review is being undertaken. I know that over the last few years, there have been some issues with the residents of Charlottesville in terms of the expectations, the service delivery of the health center. The discussions were part, we would have discussed the issues at our meeting of yesterday, and the review is being undertaken, and we will communicate back to not only the residents, but the members of the public with regards to the decisions on the review and the services to be offered at that particular facility. Additionally, I wish to add that we have been giving quite a lot of support to persons in the community. Of communities, of course, you know that the Division of Health, Wellness, and Family Development is also responsible for the coordination of social support services on this island. We have been working with the Division of Finance and Enterprise Development. We have been working with the Ministry of Social Development as well in terms of assisting residents on the island in filling out food card forms, in filling out a number of different social support services forms. To date, we have assisted over 503 persons to fill out and email application forms for social assistance. And I would really want to thank the team in the social assistance department for their commitment to the process. They work very late at nights, and I really want to commend and congratulate them for that commitment. I also want to indicate that our counseling support hotline is up and running. 47 calls were received to date, and of course, we have been attempting to assist persons with overwhelming emotions caused as a result of COVID. And as I would have indicated, we have our social workers who are part of the process. We have our psychologists as well who are a part of the process. And so the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development and the members of staff have been out there assisting in coordinating and ensuring that we are able to respond to the needs of persons in communities and who are affected by COVID at this point in time. Last but by no means least, I want to indicate that, as I would have said earlier, social services falls under the remit of my division, and so we have looked at how we can provide an additional level of service to the people out there in Tobago. We have determined that we will distribute some hampers throughout the upcoming days, and we have begun the process of compiling names, not only from our database, but through requesting submissions from established groups within the communities. And so far, we have received names from quite a lot of groups, such as the Mason Hall Police Youth Club, Roxborough Police Youth Club, Charlottesville Police Youth Club, to name a few.
All right, thank you to Councillor Tracy Davidson Celestine for your presentation. That pretty much brings us to the end of presentations, and we move on to fielding questions from the media. I will lay some ground rules as we would usually do every week. For members of the media who have questions, please raise your virtual hand. And remember, you have 3 questions at a time. We're trying to get as much questions in and to give everyone an opportunity to ask questions. For persons who cannot submit the questions via Zoom, the number would have been shared within the media invite, so you could send your questions to that number. And we're asking persons to please listen on the Zoom, whatever device you have tuned into Zoom, listen on that device and not on any other streams, because as you know, it's a bit delayed, so we try to get the questions answered real time and to not have any kind of delay. So first off, I have Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News. Good afternoon, Elizabeth. Afternoon, Elizabeth, hearing us? All right, we'll come back to Elizabeth. We move on to Whitfield Turner, I-95.5. Afternoon, yes. Whitfield.
Good afternoon, Mr. George, and to everyone else. I have over a dozen questions, so I'll try
3 at a time nonetheless. Thank you.
First set for the Secretary of Health. Given that the Ministry of Health has said that the parallel healthcare system will have to remain in place for quite some time, what does this mean for the Scarborough General Hospital, especially the medical ward? And my appendage to that would be, does this mean that this would definitely mean that the field hospital takes on added significance. So can we have an update on that as well? And has there been a spot earmarked for it to be set up when it gets here? And my final question for now, for either of the 2 secretaries, if they can give us an idea as to how much money would have been spent thus far in Tobago's fight against COVID-19. I'll pause there for now.
Thank you very much, Whitfield. Secretary Davidson Celestine.
With regards to, I would have indicated last week that we are in the process of preparing for the second wave of treating with COVID. And we would have considered a number of different strategies. One having to do with the procurement of the field hospital, and as I would have mentioned, that is under the responsibilities with TEMA to determine the best service providers, how soon we can have the field hospital in Tobago. But more importantly, we have also looked at the old Scarborough Hospital with a view to housing patients that are likely to test positive from COVID. The overall plan, the short-term plan, and the long-term plan is to use a portion of the Scarborough Old Hospital as an infectious center that will provide at least 20 beds in the first instance. The facility is very ready. The team would have done a site visit because the facility was recently refurbished and handed over by UDCOT, and so it is very ready. I know that the oxygen will be installed maybe sometime over the weekend or very early next week. But our facility have already been identified, and work has basically started to bring it up to that level of readiness and preparedness in the event that we are to have more positive cases here on the island. And so the hospital, the Scarborough General Hospital, will return to its normal function within a very short space of time.
All right, and the question, I'm not sure who would take the last question, the amount of money spent thus far on COVID-19.
I don't have all the figures here, and so we can compile that information for you because it will also include the spend from the respective divisions. So at our next press conference, that information can be shared.
Thank you. As we move on with our questions, I invite at this time Clayton Clark from 92.7 FM. Good afternoon, Clayton.
Good afternoon, Mr. George, and to the head table there.
Good afternoon.
A couple of questions. First, to Mrs. Rollox Hackett. You mentioned the e-learning videos, etc., the divisions, plans. How does the divisions e-learning setup line up or coincide or complement the Ministry of Education's e-class? Is it an option that Tobago students have? We can follow the Ministry of Education. Is there any kind of synergy? Are you all working together with the Ministry of Education? First question. Second question to the Secretary of Health. Well, two questions for you. An update on the incinerator. You mentioned last week that, use a nice word, they're going to be doing some sort of assessment, which would be, because I had asked, have the residents, are you going to check the residents to see how they have been affected? I mentioned some more vomiting, nausea, etc. Want to get an update on that. I know you're waiting for the person to come in to set up the machine with the incinerator, but people want to find out what is being done to allay the fears and the reality of these residents. And third question also to the Secretary of Health. There was talk, and I want to get an update in terms of what is testing still going to be done in Tobago. Is it going to be sent to Trinidad with the new testing specifically done to Trinidad? What's the latest on that? I know that the ballpark is changing with as things change with the whole health situation. But what has been done, testing, is it still on for Tobago? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clayton. So the first question to Mrs. Rollox Hackett. How does the division's e-learning coincide with the ministry's e-learning, and is there any synergy with that?
Okay, the relationship between the Division of Education, Innovation and Energy and the Ministry of Education continues to be a collaborative one. What will happen is our platform will provide our students with an additional option as to their development at this point in time. On our website, we will have links that will take them directly to the Ministry of Education LSM platform so that they can interact also and benefit from what is on that particular platform. Also, when we have our Moodle up and running, there will also be a link that will take them to the Big Blue Button platform, which is also one that comes under the direction of the Ministry of Education. So it's about opening up several opportunities for students, and also we felt the need in Tobago to have a platform that caters exclusively for our children, and also a platform where the students will see teachers who are familiar to them at their various schools. So it's a continuation of that collaboration, and the alignment is there.
All right, thank you. We move on with the questions. An update on the incinerator and how have residents been affected, what has been done to allay their fears. Secretary Tracy Davidson Celeste.
All right, so at our last press conference, what I said is that a health needs assessment will be done. I have been advised by the public health officer, the CMOH, that right now they are sourcing air quality testing, and that will determine the level of exposure of the residents and the signs and symptoms that they are to look out for. And so the process is an ongoing one as we speak, and as I continue to receive information, we will of course update the members of the media and the persons who are so affected. But the most important thing is that we are sourcing persons who can do air quality testing for us to determine a number of different things.
And is testing still being done in Tobago as it's being ramped up in Trinidad? Would the test be sent to Trinidad? What has been done?
In this particular instance, the test will be sent to Trinidad at one of the identified facilities. However, I wish to add that the requested PCR machine is on its way. As a matter of fact, I am advised that it is in transit as we speak. Upgrade work is also taking place at the laboratory, at the hospital as well. As I would have indicated, upgrade works would have started on the 27th of April, and that is also ongoing. And so we are preparing now to receive that machine so that we can also undertake COVID testing in Tobago as well as time goes on.
Thank you very much, Secretary. We move on to Cassandra Thompson-Forbes, Guardian Media. Good afternoon, Cassandra.
Good afternoon to the panel. Are you all hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so my first question, I'm hoping somebody from education can answer. And this is in relation to teachers. Although we know we have this stay-at-home order and teachers are expected to send schoolwork to their students, we are having a situation where some teachers aren't doing as they are expected to. My question is it mandatory that teachers send schoolwork or engage their students in online activities, or, to just get the work done? Is it mandatory? And also, because people believe that, okay, teachers are being paid and there is a platform for it and they should be able to do what is expected of them. In addition to that, some teachers are also saying they don't have the necessary devices to do same. Is there anything in the pipeline to have special laptops for teachers at all? That's one. My second question, and this is in relation to our current situation here in Tobago. I know we have a lot going on, and some of us might be saying we have COVID, and there's also the disquiet of the political situation. So my question is, how soon can persons expect to know who will be the next chief secretary? When will the special sitting be held? My third question is in relation to a story that we carried, and that is in relation to a statement made by Mr. Martin George, attorney at law, who he indicated that the Executive Council does not exist at this time. I know Mr. Mr. Jack indicated that certain decisions will be made by next week by the Executive Council. So the question has come up. We don't have a chief secretary at this time. Is the Executive Council be able to function? Does it exist at this time? And who would be running such who would be taking up the mantle?
All right, thank
to
you.
carry on the business of the Executive Council.
Thank you very much, Cassandra. So our first question to Mrs. Rollocks Hackett, with the expectation that teachers are expected to send work to students, is this mandatory? And also if any technical equipment will be provided to teachers to carry out their work during this time?
Well, at this point in time, we are quite aware at the division and even nationally at the Ministry of Education that all the requirements for our teachers to get fully online and to conduct online teaching and learning, we do not have everything as yet. Be that as it may, I'm aware that in recent discussions held between the ministry and the tutor, that it was indicated that at this particular time, that those requests are not being made mandatory. Even while I say that, I also want to say that we have been appealing to our teachers, asking them to come on board, especially if they are in possession of the necessary wherewithal to make this a reality. And I want to say that even though it's not mandatory at this particular point in time, we have a large cadre of our teachers who are stepping up to the plate and recognizing that, yes, the circumstances are not ideal, we do not have everything, but whatever we have, that we will utilize it. And hence the reason a number of the schools are utilizing simply the WhatsApp. And most persons, once you have your smartphones, you have a WhatsApp. And lessons are being shared to our students, whether they have the phones themselves or the phones of their parents, ensuring that what needs to happen, that it's taking place. And I want to even say that it's happening to such an extent that even before I came here this afternoon, I got a parent call me and she said, you know, I am not getting lessons and I'm hearing that all the other students in my child's class, they are having lessons posted on WhatsApp and so forth, and I want to know how I can get on board, etc. And I was able to provide her with some assistance. So I'm saying all of this to say that irrespective of that, we are having at the level of the school, our teachers coming, and I really want to congratulate them because many of them at this point in time are utilizing their personal devices and their own internet at home to do what is required. At the end of the day, these are our children here in Tobago, and hence the reason why we believe that even with the videotaping, that we needed to get our own teachers on board doing what is required. And yes, as far as the ministries or the divisions plan as providing the necessary equipment and as far as laptops and so forth for teachers, I know that in that discussion that was held recently with tutor, that was also an issue that was discussed, and I know that the response was a positive one, and it is also indicated that that will be done in collaboration with the private sector to see how they can assist in ensuring that not only our teachers are provided with the necessary devices, but also our students, because some of our students are not online with whatever is taking place because they too do not have. But we are actively, from the level of the ministry, I know that is happening, and also in collaboration with the division, we are preparing to treat with those matters.
All right, thank you. I'll go to the third question first, where the attorney, Martin George, indicated that the Executive Council does not exist at this time. Is the Executive Council able to function at this time, and who leads these meetings?
I wish to add that last Wednesday, we had our usual Executive Council meeting. I would also wish to indicate that, if I am not mistaken, the Act 40 of 1996 identifies a particular procedure and a particular process, so that in the event that there is no chief secretary, which has happened before, because there were times that the chief secretary would have been absent from Tobago, the deputy chief secretary will act as the chief secretary. I also want to indicate that in the shortest possible time frame, as I have been advised, the next chief secretary will be chosen. And of course, as I would have indicated in times gone, that process is well accounted for in the standing orders in the Tobago House of Assembly Act 40 of 1996. I myself have acted as chief secretary sometime before when I held the position of deputy chief secretary, and now we have Assemblyman Joel Jack, who holds the portfolio of deputy chief secretary and will also act as the chief secretary until that time that the chief secretary has been nominated. And so at this point, we are following the procedures that have been set out in the Tobago House of Assembly Act. And as I would have indicated, I know the Assembly Legislature is at this time engaged in working out, ironing out all the particular nuances and working towards ensuring that we can have the chief secretary in the shortest possible time frame.
All right, thank you very much. We move on to Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News. Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. Hope you are hearing me now.
Yes, we are, definitely. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News. I wanted to get from Finance Secretary Joel Jack, what is I know he said 2,700, but I just wanted to get it clear, the total number of social grants and food cards that have been distributed so far in Tobago. In addition, my other question is for Ms. Sherry-Ann Rollocks-Hackett. Any arrangements have been made to facilitate students, special needs students, those who are visually and hearing impaired, in terms of also online classes? Is this also being looked at? And I wanted to get also from Mr. Jack, what will he label, or how would he label the Tobago economy at this point? Also, my other question is for the Tourism Secretary, Madam
Three
Nadine.
questions, Liz. We want to give everybody a chance, please.
Okay. All right, I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. So we have our questions from TV6 News. 2 to the Secretary of Finance, the total number of social grants / food cards distributed so far in Tobago, and how would you label the Tobago economy at this time?
The number of food cards distributed between the period March to date, 2,708 cards in total. And this figure includes those cards supplied to the Division of Education. As it relates to the Tobago economy, we're currently estimating the fallout and impact of the global pandemic. All things point to significant economic decline across a number of sectors, primarily the hospitality, tourism, distribution, food, and all the sectors related to the tourism industry. As I indicated earlier, our projections in 2029 going into 2020 all pointed to continued positive growth of the tourism of the Tobago economy prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the tourism sector as well prior to in early January. We were all excited about with respect to the prospects for the calendar year and as well the fiscal year. Our estimates point to a significant impact. Tourism, as I indicated, it's over 80 80 million TT dollars in terms of the fallout and across all sectors. So we're looking at significant economic decline year on year, looking at the GDP, and we are currently completing the estimates. We have an initial estimate that we're reviewing currently, and that will be announced next week as well. But yes, fiscal 2020, while I indicated previously that fiscal 2020, at the beginning of the fiscal year last year, that we're excited about the prospects for Tobago and the Tobago economy. This year would present us with a number of challenges, but in the midst of challenges, I welcome the opportunity. And as I continue in my message to the business owners, members of the business community, and across various sectors, let us not waste a good crisis, but to continue to look for the opportunities amidst the crisis. And let us continue to work together to surmount the challenges confronting us coming out of the COVID pandemic. Already in my discussions with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Hotel Association, the credit unions, business owners, both in Tobago and Trinidad, while there are challenges, we're seeing a number of entrepreneurs already looking to either switch their product lines and to ensure business continuity, that their businesses survive. And let me say at the onset that we in the Tobago House of Assembly will continue to work with all our stakeholders in the island to ensure that their businesses are resilient during this period, that we provide the much needed support where possible. And we are looking at various programs in addition to the SME program announced last week, where that initial support of $5 million can be supplemented with an additional $5 million already in the funds in hand in the business development unit. So we're looking at various measures and mechanisms to support the wider SME sector in Tobago and to ensure that the businesses survive during this period.
All right, thank you very much. And on to Mrs. Rolex Hackett. Any facility in place for special needs children during this time?
I want to say at this point in time, yes, that the school supervisor, too, has been liaising with the principals at those special needs institutions here in Tobago and have been working out a plan that they have been implementing. And this plan basically focused on the use of, once again, WhatsApp, liaising with the parents as to how they can continue to engage our special needs students during this particular time. Now, to have them online, involved in the online learning, that will also require specialist technologies that at this point in time, we are, this point in time, strategizing as to how we will treat with that. But currently, they are receiving attention with their principals via the parents, and this will continue until we are able to strategize as to further involvement. I also want to indicate that our students at our early childhood centers are also catered for. Our ECCE managers have been working with the parents and the principals and ensuring that the requisite work is sent home for those children. And it's not heavily academic for our younger ones. It's largely about values and also to assist them in further developing their psychomotor skills that they require to advance within the primary school sector.
All right, thank you very much. We move on with our questions. Ms. Akinlabi Holder, Tobago Channel 5, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Akinlabi Holder, Tobago Channel 5.
Yes.
I have one question for the Finance Secretary and for the Tourism Secretary. She's still there?
Yes, they are all still here. Go ahead with your questions.
mentioned that you received the last tranche of the $50 million program for the hoteliers, Secretary Jack. Has the program begun to disburse the funds, and if not, when will it begin? To the Secretary of Tourism, I know you said that you are going to execute some programs to improve the product that we have here on the island. Concerning that same building grant for the hoteliers, we've seen that same grant or fund been used over the years and nothing much has changed. How would you all ensure that something is done differently this time to get the results that everyone is expecting? And my last question is for the Secretary of Health, Secretary Davidson Celestin. I heard you mention, and it was asked, but I didn't hear the answer. Is the Tobago Council of the PNM planning to request a special sit-in of the acting presiding officer? And how soon can we expect that request to be put in?
Thank you very much, Mr. Holder. So our first question to the Secretary of Finance, as it pertains to the last tranche of the $50 million, has the disbursement begun, and if not, when?
Just one correction, Mr. Holder. I indicated that we received the second tranche of the $50 million supplemental allocation to the TRHA to fund the COVID-19 pandemic. We have not received as yet the funding for the tourism grant facility, and I would, but it was approved by Cabinet yesterday, and we were working out the administrative details. I would allow my colleague, Councillor Nadine Phillips, to elaborate on the question as well.
Thank you, Akinlabi Holder. I did indicate the $50 million that would be allocated to the hotel sector. There is a specific criteria that must be met. To answer your specific question, what we are doing, because the world is moving towards environmental sustainability, we want to ensure that our properties in the first instance, whilst they are upgrading, become Green Key certified. That is one of the, I don't want to use the word conditionalities, but we want them to use that, to bear that in mind, whilst they are upgrading. Additionally, that whole issue of TTIC certified, becoming TTIC certified, that is the Trinidad and Tobago Industry Certification that the agency is currently rolling out in conjunction with the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards. We want to ensure that our properties as well become TTIC certified. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we want them to focus as well on digitization. I can say that we have probably just over 50 properties that actually are online and have websites, and going forward as we prepare for post-COVID, because I want to reiterate that we have to be competitive, because the post-COVID tourism is going to be totally different from tourism pre-COVID.
Thank you very much. And the last question to the Secretary of Health is there a special sitting being planned, and if so, when?
Thank you for the question. I indicated before that a vacancy would have been created and a particular course of action was triggered as a result, and the process is being followed at this point in time, and the Assembly Legislature is ensuring that all of the nuances are being sorted out and that members will eventually receive order of the sit-in, notice of the sit-in within the shortest possible time frame.
Thank you very much. So second round of questions, going back to Mr. Clark, Clayton Clark from 92.7. Good afternoon again.
Good afternoon to the panel. 3 questions. First question, well, first of 2 to the Secretary of Health. What would you have to say to those residents? I'm coming back to that again. what would you want to say to them? You mentioned that you all are working on getting the testers or what have you. What you want to really say to these residents who, despite all what you all are doing, they are hurting, their needs are not being met. What you want to say to them? Any assurance? Have you all visited them? One. Second question to the Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation. We just got a release that a new board has been appointed to the Tobago Festival Commission, now headed by Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus. Last week a question was asked about Mr. George Leacock's status on the board. The question wasn't answered as by the then Chief Secretary as the matter was under investigation. Do you have any comment on that? The new board doesn't include Dr. William Bob Lewis, Glenda Lane Rose, and we are seeing ex officio member Cheryl Duncan. Can you just give us an idea, update on that? And third question, in the whole issue of the Mr. Kelvin Charles' last day at office and what is the status of Tobago, whether we have an executive council, is it that Mr. Jack will be acting in the interim as we have no chief secretary or nobody in the position at the time? Can someone comment on that?
All right, so thanks, Clayton. So the third question was answered already. To the first question, what do you want to see, Secretary of Health, to the residents of Signal Hill, and have they been visited?
To the residents of Signal Hill, I wish to indicate that your representative, Mr. Jomo Pitt, has articulated the need time and time again for us in the Division of Health and Wellness and TRHA to treat with the challenge as a matter of urgency. I want to give you, the residents, the assurance that we are working assiduously to treating and resolving the matter as soon as is possible. As I would have indicated, we have already procured a particular system that will use microwave technology. The public health officer, Dr. Tiffany Hoyt, is looking in and assessing the situation, and I would have indicated earlier that we are looking to do an air quality testing and to determine how to respond to the particular situation. So your pleas have not fallen on deaf ears. I've also requested that the public health officer and the team also meet with the residents one-on-one and communicate this particular information at this point in time. But we are working assiduously to resolve the challenges that they face in that particular area.
All right, on to the Secretary of Tourism. I'm not sure if she would like to comment at this time. I know we're trying to focus on COVID-19, but up to you, Sec.
Thank you very much, Mr. George, for the opportunity. Just for clarification, Clayton Clark, Mr. Leacock does not sit on the board of directors of the Tobago Festivals Commission. Mr. Leacock was appointed as festival director to oversee the management of festivals at the Tobago Festivals Commission. So yes, you are right, Dr. Angus, this morning was appointed as chairman of the Tobago Festivals Commission, and the board of directors would lead in the strategic direction and management of the company. Just a short note in response to your question, Mr. Leacock is on suspension and investigation is on the way, and I would make no further comment on that.
All right, thank you very much. We move on to Cassandra. Go ahead, Cassandra.
So good afternoon again to the panel.
Good afternoon.
My first question again is to Secretary Stuart Phillips. And we know that in light of COVID, a couple of the Tobago festivals would have been cancelled or postponed, as the case may be. Can you give us an update on the Tobago Heritage Festival that is scheduled to come up in just a few months? In addition to that, we know in the tourism sector, there is supposed to be a stimulus package for them. Many of the hotels in Tobago have sent home workers, sent dismissed workers, as the case may be, for up to a period of some persons for 3 months, some persons were definitely sent home and told that they were retrenched. So my question is, what are the criteria for this, for persons, for hotel owners to access the stimulus package? In addition to that, and this is still on that same question, these hotels, some of these hotels have also refused to sign documents for their staff to access the different social programs. So is there anything in place to ensure that they do their due diligence, and what message would you like to send to them in that respect? And my final question, and this goes back to Secretary Tracy Davidson Celestin. Madam Secretary, with all due respect, I believe that you may not have answered our question as you would have asked, because the scenario that you put forward, read the Deputy Chief Secretary, and even in your time, stated that we had a sitting Chief Secretary. Either he was out of the country or on vacation, as the case may be. In this situation, the Chief Secretary resigned. We are seeing it as not as the same thing, and in that respect, how what message would you like to put forward and to Tobagonians to having understand this issue or this dilemma at this time?
All right, thank you very much, Cassandra. Our questions, to the Secretary of Tourism, Tobago, the cancellation of Tobago festivals. Any update on the Heritage Festival in Tobago?
Okay, thank you very much, Cassandra, for your question. I wish to place on the record that in the first festival that we have to cancel would be the Blue Food Festival, and that's because that festival is due in June, and there was no planning in place for that. So not Blue Food Festival, sorry, the Tobago Dragon Boat Festival, the local leg of the Dragon Boat Festival. My sincerest apologies. The Tobago Heritage Festival, however, we are still playing it by ear for a number of reasons. We are waiting to see how the COVID situation develops, more specifically what happens relative to the social distancing measures. However, in initial conversation with the chairman and the board of directors this morning, it is actually one of the items very high on the agenda that I have asked them to look at, in the situation that we cannot have a physical gathering of the festival, to utilize other ways and means of ensuring that that period still exhibits or showcase some form of the Tobago Heritage Festival, whether it be virtually. So we would provide more information on that as the information comes to hand.
All right, and the next question to you, what's the criteria for hotel owners to access the stimulus packages?
Okay, as I also outlined this morning, we are finalizing the criteria with the division and the Tobago House of Assembly. The criteria would have specific guidelines and requirements, and that has not been worked out, but I did indicate that by next week all that information will be forthcoming.
And the final part of her question, anything in place to deal with persons, particularly the hoteliers, who refuse to sign those forms for persons to receive social assistance?
I think it is extremely unfortunate that is occurring, if in fact it is indeed so. I am not challenging what you are putting forward, Cassandra. And in this trying time of COVID-19, I mean, this is a pandemic. Everyone is being affected. We have situations where some persons are more vulnerable than others, and there are situations presently where persons have access to no income. And so I really want to implore and encourage the hoteliers to assist your employees, because this also forms part of us preparing for post-COVID. There is a term we refer to in the tourism sector as clinical resilience. And what that refers to is ensuring that we take care of the persons that are employed in the industry. Because moving forward, these are the persons that must ensure that the tourism business gets up and running. All we can do from our level, I can set the policies as the secretary, the agency can implement, but the real tourism is on the ground. And the real tourism are the employees in the tourism and hospitality sector. So I would really hope that the employees would have that the employer, would please have a heart and sign the necessary documents. The government has made this stimulus package available, and we want the employees to ensure that they get access.
All right, and well, I'm not sure who will take the last question, the claim that...
But I just wish to add to what Councillor Nadine has just said, and that is if there are persons who cannot, who are not able to get their form signed, as would have indicated as a part of the policy, I'm asking for it to be reported to the Labour Department here, which is under the ambit of the Division of Community Development and Enterprise Development and Labour.
Yeah, and to the final question, the claim that the question wasn't answered as it pertains to the Exec Council not existing at this time, and who will lead meetings of the Executive Council at this time?
As I would have indicated earlier, the matter is being dealt with by the Assembly Legislature, and as the standing orders would have indicated, the order of business will go out in short order to indicate a sitting, to appoint, to elect, to nominate the Chief Secretary, who will then be responsible for the management of the island's affairs. And as I would have indicated, I expect that to happen within the shortest possible time frame.
Thank you very much, Secretary, and thanks very much, Cassandra. We did, in fact, answer your question this time around. As we move on, we move on to Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News. Hi, Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. Hi, Elizabeth Williams, TV6 News.
Hi, Liz.
I know that Madam Tracy Davidson Celestin would have stated before that a number of hampers will be distributed in the coming days. How can persons get listed for these hampers? And I don't know if you can look into this matter. I don't know if Mr. Jack will be able to, or who will be, with respect to a number of custom workers in Tobago. They are complaining about their outstanding arrears. I don't know if you will be able to look into that matter.
Thank you very much, Liz. The first question to the Secretary of Health: how can persons get listed to receive hampers?
You can call the Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development. As I would have indicated sometime earlier, we have a suite of social support assistance that can be provided, the hampers included. We also provide food items on an emergency basis for those persons who are in need, and we also offer rental assistance for a 3-month period at a minimum of at a maximum of 2,500. So please give your information to the division, their social services officers on hand, and we will treat with it accordingly.
All right, and the number for the division, 639-3395, and you ask for the Community Social Services Unit, even the Social Welfare Department. Any one of them will be able to direct you to where you need to get your assistance. The second question, a number of customs workers complaining about not receiving the outstanding arrears. I don't know if anyone here can address that.
Is my mic on? As it relates to the outstanding arrears, the employees at the Customs Department, let me say that the process of clearing those arrears is in train, and I expect that soon, at the end of the next quarter, that they will be hearing good news. The process took a very long time, given the fact that it was stopped or from going forward as a result of an audit query. And we have been back and forth with the Internal Audit Department as it relates to those outstanding payments. But let me reassure the customs officers, as I have done in the past, that we are well on the way towards clearing of these arrears. And I expect that you will hear some good news at the end of the next quarter.
All right, thank you very much. We go to Whitfield Turner of I-95.5.
Yes, thank you very much. My second batch will begin with Secretary Nadine Stewart Phillips. As you look towards Tobago's tourism post-COVID, will there be a push towards bringing regional tourism into sharp focus with direct flights, especially as it pertains to entertainment tourism? And I'm asking that against the backdrop that it appears that long-haul tourism will take a longer time to recover than short-haul tourism. So we may more likely see persons from within the region traveling more regularly before we see persons from the Scandinavian market. And my other two questions go to Mrs. Rollox Hackett in terms of logistics. Now that students are basically learning from home, has the division been in communication with TNTech to manage the frequency of outages? And that will obviously disrupt the learning process for children who are at home, especially for persons in the East, where they normally have frequent outages. Is there some sort of communication taking place between TNTech to try to bring those numbers down? And also for her, has any consideration been given towards the establishment of hotspots in rural areas for persons who may not otherwise have internet access? I'll pause there for now.
Thank you very much. The first question, any consideration for delving more deeply into regional tourism to Secretary Nadine?
Thank you, Rian. Whitfield Turner, you are indeed correct. We think that post-COVID international travel will definitely slow down, and we are attributing that to fear and anxiety, basically because of the rippling effect that COVID-19 is having in the international space. But even before we move to regional, I think our first order of business would be our domestic market. We want to get our Trinidadians here because we are not sure when our borders will reopen. We are also not sure when our partners in the Caribbean, when their regions will be open, because when their borders will be open and so on and so. Our first order of business would be to target that domestic market, that Trinidad market. I did mention as well we want to place focus on staycation campaigns as well. We want our locals to support each other. We want our Tobagonians to support each other. So regional travel, it will indeed be up for consideration and discussion, but I think first and foremost, we are looking at our domestic market.
Thank you to Mrs. Rollox Hackett. Has any contact been made with TNTech as it pertains to the frequent disruptions in service and how this may impact learning of persons, particularly in the East? And any consideration for hotspots in rural areas to provide internet service for such persons?
Yes, I know that the issue of the reliability of electrical supply is one that will really thwart the ability of students to really engage in online learning. But it's not an issue that we are currently actively engaged in any conversations at this point in time with TNTech, but it's something that we'll consider at this point in time. I want to also say that as far as the hotspots are concerned, yes, our IT department at this point in time, they have already begun having conversations with TSTT and Digicel towards establishing some hotspots on the island, and also to ensure that to some extent you'll have students being able to get access without having necessary data on their phones. A bit of technicalities involved in that, but I know that currently, yes, indeed, they are having those conversations, and we will be able to report fully on that at some time later.
All right, and Secretary Jack, to add? You wanted to add?
As it relates specifically to the issue and the challenges of a reliable supply in Windward Tobago, the Minister of Public Utilities is aware, and he has been informed of the situation, and he has given the commitment to work with TNTech to ensure that the problem is resolved. There is need for another substation to be constructed between in Windward Tobago to deal with the spikes in supply and power supply to Windward Tobago, and he has given a commitment to address that. So the Assembly is working very diligently with the Minister to rectify this problem.
All right, thank you very much. So we are at 3 o'clock, and I know we went way past the time that we anticipated. We'll take one last round of questions, and then we'll wrap up. Akinlabi Holder, could go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Hearing me?
Yes, sir. Could go ahead.
All right. I have 3 questions. One, this is a general question concerning the social services support. If your application was rejected, would the person be informed? Would the applicant be informed? Secondly, this one is for, I believe, would be the Secretary of Health. I don't know if she could shine any light on this. Apart from Mr. Charles resigning as Chief Secretary, did he also resign as the Education Secretary and or Assemblyman as well? And the final question, this one is for the Tourism Secretary. It's concerning the requirements of hoteliers. Someone is saying that the Green Key program might be a barrier because it's a very demanding program to meet specific global standards, and the essence does not have any, and in essence, there are no green properties meeting the criteria, and it will be an economic and cultural cost for hoteliers, as well as the digitization may cost them a lot as well. So is there any way the Assembly will be facilitating or helping hoteliers to meet these costs in order to meet the high requirements?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Holder. So the first question, persons where their applications are rejected for social services assistance, would they be informed? Secretary of Health.
Pardon?
So persons who have rejected applications.
Well, I don't have that information, but it is something that we can look into, because I suspect if it's rejected, that those persons will, get that information coming back to them. But so far, we really have not had any complaints of any rejection, but I can obtain some information for you.
And
if I may, as it relates to the application of the Emergency Social Assistance Card program, there's an interview process, and persons, in terms of identifying their needs and bringing the relevant papers. So if persons are denied, they would be informed through the interview process as to whether the application was approved or not. So it's not an automatic application, and we would have seen the issues highlighted where persons are claiming that they need, and when after the assessment is undertaken, persons are not really in need. So please, again, the intervention and the support is for those who are vulnerable and to those who are in need, and we want to ensure that the programs get to the targeted persons, and we're dealing with public funds, and this is the reason for the screening process as well.
All right, thank you very much. And to answer the last question from Mr. Holder on tourism, I will invite Mr. Louis Lewis, the CEO of the Tobago Tourism Agency, and this is to deal with the Green Key program, the fact that it is demanding, and some persons are claiming that it's almost impossible to attain. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. George. I think we have to position the Green Key certification as part of the broad strategy for Tobago. What we have recognized is that coming out of this pandemic, we have to become more competitive, and we have to align ourselves with what is our core strength. So the Green Key certification is a procedure that has several stages. And while the ultimate can be seen as prohibitive, it has several stages at which you can qualify for different levels. We have to see it as a gradual process, a graduating process to the ultimate, but it's not something that we can step away from, or not something that we should step away from. And once we align ourselves in that direction, the benefits for us as an overall tourism destination are tremendous. We will lock into a market that people will envy us for. And bear in mind that the ultimate is demanding, but we're taking it in a graduated process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. Reminding persons this is the final rounds of questioning. So we go on to Cassandra.
Yes. My question is, please correct me if I'm wrong. Did Mrs. Hackett say that we have 950 food cards for the Division of Education for students? And many persons are asking, again, the criteria for the selection process, because we have some situations, persons believe that they are maybe entitled for a card, but they were not given. And there are still situations where others, they believe that others may have the wherewithal to feed their families during this time, getting cards. So can you just, for the purpose of the public, can she indicate, what were some of the things that they looked at for selecting certain students or certain families for these cards? And my second question, Mrs. Tracy Davidson selecting, can she indicate if Mr. Charles's resignation letter would be made public? That's it from me.
Thank you, and that would be the last round of questions. So the criteria for selecting persons for the food cards.
Okay. Now we have in Tobago, within our school feeding program, we basically feed all our children. And nationally, they feed numbers, students who are really in dire need of that kind of support. So at this point in time, in securing the names from the various principals, they would have been guided to select from that large pool, as much as is possible, students coming from homes that they are aware of, who probably have parents who at this point in time will probably be laid off, students whose parents are within a particular income bracket, etc. The school is usually in a very good position to be able to determine those things, and those were some of the basic criteria that we'll utilize in order to compile the list of names that we eventually compiled. Now, I would say to you that at times, and it did happen in this instance, we recognized that there were certain names that just jumped out at us, and we did call some of those persons and said that your name will not be forwarded, etc. And I also want to say that in calling some of the parents to verify some of the information that we received, some persons were also very honest to say, well, I don't think I should be on that list. And their names were also taken off the list. So as much as possible, we endeavor to ensure that those persons who are on the list are really persons in need. because there is sometimes when we speak of food cards, there are some persons in the society who feel that, okay, because it's coming from the government and it is free, we are all entitled. But it's not about all of us being entitled, because there are persons who really, really are in need of that. And there are some of our students who are at home now, and they are really, really in need. So we have tried our best in ensuring that we filter and we vet that list to ensure that the right students really receive the food cards.
All right, thank you. And if to Secretary Tracy Davidson Celestine, now, we did not, was just highlighted that one of the questions wasn't answered, if I couldn't recall. The one with Mr. Charles and his resignation as the Secretary of Education, if he has resigned as Secretary of Education and as an Assemblyman as well, and the second question, would the resignation letter be made public?
Well, I can't say whether the letter of resignation will be made public. That is to be determined by Mr. Charles himself. So I can't answer that particular question. That will be answered by him.
All right. Thank you very much. So we really have exhausted a lot of the resignation letter being made public. I apologize.
Yes, well, I just answered that one to say that. He is still an assemblyman and responsible for his electoral district. And as the chief secretary, you're automatically given a division. As you know, he served as the secretary with responsibilities for education. So after demitting office, that portfolio would have also become vacant as well.
All right. So thank you very much. We did exhaust a lot of the questions from members of the media. The panel, they are have a lot of work to go back to, we all. So we do thank everyone for viewing. It has indeed been a pleasure. We look forward to this weekly. And even to the members of the media, you know that post this, you can send your questions to us via email, and we will assure you that we will get back to you with a response. So I want to encourage you, members of the public, to really continue to practice your preventative measures. The stay-at-home orders still is in effect, so we are all at home, and we are encouraging persons to find creative ways to, live at home with your families and to just have fun being at home with your families, but noting that we can't become complacent, even as we anticipate nationally that they are assessing to see how things are going, and even as things may be relaxed a bit, we are encouraging persons not to become complacent, because this thing affects us all, and it is at the end of the day, it's our hygiene that helps take us through this difficult time. So my name is Rian George once again, and it has indeed been a pleasure. I encourage everyone to be safe, stay at home, and help us to save lives. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
That was live coverage of the THA Division of Health, Wellness and Family Development update on its response to COVID-19. Remember to stay right here on TTT and at Talk City 91.1 FM, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at TTT Live Online for the latest on COVID-19.